All right, guys. Now that we have the hotbox sorted out and how you can actually navigate with the menus in such a way that it doesn't require you to sacrifice half your real estate, a screen real estate here, just to have the access to these menus, we're going to talk about the right mouse button. Now, this is a contextual menu, and it'll give you different outputs depending on what situation you're in. But it's extremely handy. At least I find it extremely handy. So let's see what's going to happen if we hold the right mouse button right now. Oh, gee, great. We got the complete tool and the select tool. But that's not all. If you press and hold shift, it's going to give you your modeling options, okay? At least when you're in the modeling, in the sense of modeling, in the modeling toolkit, right? So in our case, we can create a poly cylinder without actually going into create polygon primitives, whatever. Right? If you want to be really fancy, you can do the exact same thing. Well, I'm just deselected. You can do the exact same thing, but with the with the flick shot type deal. We can go like boom. Now we have 2 cylinders. Right? 3 cylinders, 4 cylinders, 5 cylinders. Right? You can go nuts with this, but obviously, like I said, there's problems with this. At least that's what I find, because you get these. I don't even know what I just pressed. Maybe if we go into our toolbox and we'll know what happened. Oh, that's the multi-cut tool. That's cool. No, I don't want to save. That's cool, but that's not what we need. Okay, so let me just delete all these suckers. So when you press and hold shift on an empty space here, you get all of these create primitives, which is handy instead of going over the create menu. So let's create a torus. And focus on it. All right. Our next menu on the agenda is how we're going to change. Right. In our case, it's F1 for vertices, F2 for edges, and F3 for faces, and F4 for the object mode, which is just you swap between the object and the component mode. But you could also do this with the right mouse button, and it's quite intuitive. And I really find it to be rarely missing. In other words, you hold the right mouse button. And as you can see, you got the edge mode, the vertex mode, the vertex face, the multi-mode, the UV, which we don't need right now, and the object mode. So this is going to allow you to go to flick shot, to make a flick shot for edges, for example, and boom, you have your edges here. Okay, remember, we can select an edge loop, for example, like this, and maybe even 2 edge loops, right? And maybe even extrude them to the left, and maybe you have some kind of, there you go, you already have a turbine for an engine, for example, right? This would be your engine turbine, or something similar to this, right? This would be your, or maybe it could be a cap on something. I don't know. Like, you choose what you want to do with it. Point is that it allows you quick access, much like a shortcut would. For example, if you wanted to go into faces, you would go into bottom, and you have your, I don't even know what I did. I think I selected the multi-component. I'm not sure what I did, but there we go. You got the faces on. You can still do the same thing here, and extrude it to the top, maybe like this. Yeah, and maybe even rotate them. Well, maybe we'll rotate it to the bottom like that. Right, there's some weird shape for you, whatever this is. I'm not even sure what I'm doing right now, but I'm just demonstrating that you could actually, you could create, you can select your different selection modes very easy. You can just go to, let's say, to vertices, right? And there you go. You got your vertex mode, and you could, work quite easily in the vertices here that are available to you, and maybe you could, I don't know, blow them up or something, right? Or I don't know, like whatever it is you want to do, you could do with them. Maybe make this bigger or smaller, right? In some cases, like this would probably help out, right? Maybe drive it in. Okay, so there we go. I created something that I'm not entirely sure what it is, but it could probably be used for, for something at some point in time, right? The cool thing is you could really swap very fast. I think this could be slightly faster than using the keyboard, right? It could go up or down, or left or right. The problem is that I'm selecting, when I go up, I'm supposed to select the edge mode, whereas I'm selecting something different. So there's the face mode, there's the vertex mode, there's the edge mode, face mode, vertex mode, edge mode, multi-thing mode to see if you got any rogue, like blow it up basically mode. And you've got the multi-select mode, which allows you to select everything, I believe, not just, this is the UV that I ended up in. So like the multi stuff is close to the UV, so you could go into the UV shell by, by accident. cool thing about it is this allows you to select everything: faces, edges, right? Whatever floats your boat. But the problem is that, you know, marquing stuff is going to give you some you know, weird results depending on how you're selecting things, right? So I wouldn't use the multi-component mode. At least I'm not a fan of it. Maybe if you need it, like it's this very specific thing, right? If you need a specific thing, like a move this vertex here with this edge and that face there, and we need to create some, I don't even know what you could use that for. Like, why would you need to use just like multiple components, like, and manipulate them under a single, like, I don't think you'd ever need that. So because you need to stick to vertex, face, and edge mode, I find them to be easier like this. But enough about that. What else do we have here in terms of options? Well, since we can hold the right mouse button, there's other stuff here available to us as well. I'm just go to object mode. We got the pTorus, right? Which is this is going to open the attribute editor for the pTorus. This is going to give you all the attributes. Remember we used the Alt Q thing for the attribute editor, right? Well, in our case, you don't even need to do that because the right mouse button gives you instant access to everything that's for pTorus here. Okay, this is everything available to you. The pTorus, the poly, like you can increase the subdivision count. You can do all of that jazz. I think, yeah, see, it weirds out when you've already done the settings. So you have to do that before you actually start modifying, okay? I may have created some weird shading issues here, but whatever. So as you can see, you've got the attribute editor at your fingertips, and you don't even need to go. See how many ways, even with the hotbox, how many ways you can do the exact same thing, right? You can open the attribute editor by going and clicking the torus here with the right mouse button, okay? You can open it up with a shortcut, right? You can open it up with Windows, UI elements, general editors, attribute editor, right? There's another one. Then you can hold spacebar and go to the left side, right side, go to attributes and go to the attribute editor. So there's 5 ways to get to the exact same damn thing. And people wonder why Maya is so freaking confusing. Now you might say, oh, that gives you the freedom to work whichever way you want. But really, I think this is just extremely annoying because it just clutters the damn software. But whatever, it's the industry standard for a reason. Let's see what's next we got here. Selections, right? You can select and deselect all of this, all of the objects here, right? You can select them. You can select the hierarchy, which in our case would actually work when it comes to we open the outliner here, right? They should actually see, this is a weird ass outliner though. It's not the same outliner on one side. But you could do, let's say, the inputs. In our case, we just created a polytorus, so you could go to the inputs, and it's going to go to the attribute editor. There's another way to go to the attribute editor, by the way, but only on the inputs in your polytorus. So there's that. You can go to the outputs if you have any outputs for that. You can go to the universal. I don't even know what's that. I think you can select it and then do something. I'm not sure what it is. You got the paint, the sculpt stuff. You could sculpt on it, which is going to open up your tool settings for sculpting. Right, and this is just like another whole story. I'm not going to talk about the sculpting, but at least it opens up the tool settings for you. You could also go into sculpting in another way. You could just go into your, what was the way to get into that? Where did that go? Oh, there we go, sculpting tools. So you could get the sculpting tools through your mesh tools and open up. Or you could set up a short key maybe or shortcut to get your sculpting tools to the side. But we're going to talk about sculpting later. So you've got all these stuff like make live, for example, will allow you to snap. I'm going to talk about snapping and that jazz in the next video. But as you can see, you've got all of these options here on the right mouse button. You can assign new materials. You can go up and, select a clip in the time editor if you have an animation. So very, very streamlined, all right? Very streamlined. You can even select similar objects if you have any. So what else do you think it's possible here? Well, let's hold shift and hold right mouse button. Oh, look at this. We got the sculpt tool again. So now we could go to the sculpt tool again, and we could go to the target weld tool and the multi-cut tool and all these smooths and subdivisions. And you can create the creases. You could triangulate, quadrangulate, whatever floats your bolt. Harden edges, extrude. And extrude also has a shortcut there, so you don't even need to do that, right? You got the polygon display, which is gonna create different culling effects and maybe like toggle a bunch of stuff, like maybe see the normals or the vertex normals if you're doing some weird, if you got a weird flipped normal type deal. You got different booleans like a union, difference, intersection. You could do these for different objects, as in if you have two objects overlapping each other, you could either combine them and sew them together, or you could differentiate against each other, or just get the intersection to be the final result, or you could separate if you got two objects. But as you can see, there's plenty of stuff, and not to mention that this stuff changes depending on what you've selected, right? Now I've got other options here because I've selected an edge. If I go and select a vertex, I'm going to have another option. Like a couple of vertices, I'm going to have another option here. If you have just the one vertex, I believe it'll give me the same options. But there's plenty of variability depending on what you have selected. Here, it's going to give you different options. And not only that, you'd think that this was the end, right? But no, it isn't. There's one more thing. If we actually hold Control, you're going to get another set of options here on the right mouse button. Now the cool thing is that the Control and the Control Shift ones, because there's Shift, right mouse button, Control, right mouse button, and Control Shift, right mouse button, all give different setups. Notice that there's another way to get to the lasso tool. Right? Notice that. Okay, so let's break this down a little bit. The Control, whenever you think Control, right, always think selection. Control right mouse button is selection conversion. Anything you have selected will be converted to whatever you select in here. So you could go to edges, and select all the edges, right? Or in our case, let's say we go into face mode and we select maybe these faces. I'm holding down tab, right? So let's select these faces, and let's say I only want to select the edges of the perimeter of these faces. So what am I going to do? Am I gonna just go and start selecting the edges, just go into edge mode, right, and start selecting these, and maybe just get some weird way of selection, or I could just press Control, hold the right mouse button, and go to edges and select the edge perimeter. Boom! I got the outline of my selected polygons available for me to work with, and I can do some manipulations if I ever wanted to. Although this is obviously a bad idea in this case, right? So whenever you see Control something, Control right mouse button, you will always get, you'll always get a selection conversion rate. You can convert this to faces, right? To faces, so, or both the faces on the side. Or if you have, let's say, go to edge mode again, and maybe select the loop, and we can now select all the contained faces with both between these two loops. So what we're going to do, hold Control, right mouse button, two faces, to contain, no, we need two faces. To contain faces, I believe they should actually get, oh no, I actually screwed it up. I need just the one. What's wrong now? Why doesn't it want to do this for me? Oh, right, I need something in between, I believe. Right, well, for some reason I can't get the damn thing to work. I never actually used that specific setup, because usually if you want the faces, you'll just get the damn faces. Let me see, maybe I could get it to work like this. No, like this. All right, so to faces, it was going to work. To contain faces, I don't even know when that works. But as you can see, you can manipulate your selection quite easily. To vertices, for example, you can select the vertices. In this case, all these 4 vertices of the face. Okay, so Control established as a selection modifier or selection empowering tool, right? The next thing what we have here is the Shift one. The Control Shift one. And when it comes to Control and Shift, that one is usually almost always for constraints and for different slide and symmetry and stuff like that. So Control Shift right mouse button is going to give you the symmetry options, which will give you the opportunity to constrain different things or even enable different snaps. All right, so maybe you want to snap to vertex something when you're moving it. Maybe you want to enable symmetry. So let's say you want to enable symmetry on topology. And select the topology here, and now we have a symmetry on our topology here. And whenever you move something to the left, it's always also going to move to the right. Maybe if you scale it in, right? Scale it in and move it, scale it out at here. Come on. Right? Maybe you're creating some, I don't know, some weird type deal. Okay. So you can create symmetrical shapes like this, and you can also define the symmetry based on the you can enable it and disable it, obviously. So in our case, we just disabled it. So I'm working on the on a single object right now. But you can select different components, right? Different modes. You can select the axis which you want to work on, right? So let's say I want to select I want to enable soft select and just select the surface. And this should, oh, whoa, not space. This should give me the ability to select a bunch of stuff. No, I don't know. I really don't use that one a lot, but I'm sure you'll figure it out by yourselves, right? There's plenty of options here. I mostly use the symmetry, right? And the symmetry should be either through world of the object. Here we go through world, and this should actually enable it. For some reason, it does not enable it because it's not enabled. So world X, and instead of defining it on the object, it's defined on the world X. So if I move it here, if I move the whole object here, right, and I try to work on it, and I enable symmetry, which is enabled on the world, I'm not gonna get it, right, because it's not like the world X. There's nothing here on the other side. I need to have something on the other side for it to actually work. So I need to maybe duplicate it, move it to the left, and then I would get something on the world X, right? Or maybe I should scale the whole thing sideways. Well, this is ugly as fuck, but maybe like this, right? Whatever. And then if I enable, as you can see, I have now symmetry on both sides, because one of the sides is on the left side of the world, the other one is on the right side of the world. Okay. Anyway, now that that's done, we can remove that symmetry bit. Okay, you can actually have symmetry along the object as well. I believe that'll work too. Yeah, so the symmetry along the object, and the axis, as you can see here, is object X, but you could always have it being on the object and be on the Y-axis or the Z-axis, right? There's definitely ways to manipulate this. I'm not entirely sure what the rest of the stuff does, because I usually use this only for symmetry. I'm not sure what the axis or the the object does, for example, because we just disabled that symmetry thing, because it never did anything for me. But maybe I'm missing something. I'll check it out for you, and if it's anything important, I'll fill you in the next video. But as it is right now, you can do some pretty cool stuff with your right mouse button, and you can access a lot of options without having all that clutter on your screen, because I find it very valuable to be able to do that, and it's quite intuitive in most cases as well. Well, with the possible exception of these settings here, because I don't know what they do. Oh yeah, one more thing. The constraints. I almost forgot about those. So let's go into edge mode and select I don't know, let's select this ring here. Okay, we selected this ring here, and let's say I want to move it, but I don't want to move it left and right like so. Yeah, but let's say I want to move it along this surface here. So what you're going to do, you're going to go transform constraints and say I want to move it along the surface of this object. The edge slide is along the edges here. The surface is along the surface there. So what you're going to do, you're going to slide it out. And it's bugging out a little bit because you don't have enough polygons generally. But as you can see, it's sliding, right? And if that doesn't do it for you, you could always just do and transform it on the edge slide. And the edge slide is going to do exactly the same thing, although in a little bit different fashion. I don't think it's going to climb here. Yeah. In general, I think there is a way to actually make it climb, but I'm not too sure about what the approach to that would be. Yeah. So it's nice. And selection constraints, I wouldn't really bother with that because there's plenty of ways to select stuff as it is. I don't think you need another way to select stuff like the border, the angle, the edge loop. Like, for example, if you select the edge loops, you'll only be selecting an edge loops, right? Instead of double clicking on something, you'll get it like that, right? There you go. There's your edge loop already selected. You could always have this the selection. Let me just remove the transform constraints. Come on, right? Turn that off and maybe go on to, I don't know, angle of it, right? That's I think that's for faces. So if you were to have a face, that would actually have an impact on this angle here, or not. I'm not sure. Some of these options, I'm not really sure what they do. But like I said, they're not essential to what you're doing. What you want to be doing is being able to model stuff efficiently without having to have all that jazz in your face. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into transfer percent. I'm going to turn that off, and that's basically that. I believe we covered all the. Right mouse button options here, at least when it comes to modeling. And remember, experiment with this stuff, because depending on, like I said, depending on what you've selected, you'll get different options here. And all those tools have their own settings. You can actually, every time there's a little button here, you can actually get it, right? For example, let's say I want to bevel something. So I'm going to select, I'm going to select an edge loop, a face loop here, polygon loop, whatever you want to call it. And I'm going to bevel the damn thing. So this is going to pop out all the options, and you can bevel it in different ways, right? You can increase the width of it, and how many segments do you want, and for some reason it doesn't bevel them right for me. Absolute. No. I'm not sure why it doesn't work in this case. Usually you bevel edges anyway. Maybe that's what it is. Oh, I had to actually hit bevel first. Yeah, so that did something weird. But as you can see, we've got all these fragments. You can set it up here. And the segments here as well. We don't need that many. The depth. I'm not sure what the filtering did, but it was something anyway. So as you can see, we did some beveling in this stage. And you can actually even see it in the inputs, right? You got your poly bevel, poly twig, torus, all that jazz. And like I said, you could just get the inputs and show them to yourself. And you've got your, you could be blocking them. For example, if you move the bevel, and that should remove, oh no, for some reason it did not. Well, at least you can get the stuff on your attribute editor, or you could press Shift Q, and get the bevel on your object here. You can get the poly bevel here like this, or you can even delete that whole thing. I think you could delete the whole output. Oops! No. Okay, no. I thought you could delete the input, the output, but I was wrong. I thought you could. Jeez, I almost thought you could delete the damn thing. Okay, well, whatever. It doesn't really matter, because usually you can control Z your way out of it. But yeah, you can always select different things from here in the channel box, and you can always get to them through different settings here, right? You can get it from the inputs, the outputs, right? You can get to the what's his face? Well, I just went through this anyway, so it doesn't matter, right? I hope you got it, because there's plenty of ways to access the exact same thing, and most of the time you'll just forget about it halfway through anyway. Oh, there we go, P Torus. So there's your whole setup here with all that jazz. So yeah, experiment with this stuff, guys. We ended up with something very ugly and quite useless, I believe. But you never know what you might have to use it for. You can always modify it yourself. I'm going to delete it because it's garbage. Yeah. I'll see you guys in the next video when we're going to talk about the final thing. Well, not the final thing, not the sculpting, but we're going to talk about the pivots. Pivots are important. Don't fuck around with the pivots. All right. See you in the next video.